The next morning, everything felt different. Hana sat at the small table eating breakfast, but now she looked at Taman directly. No more downcast eyes. No more pretending. Can I ask you something? Taman said as he poured tea. Hana tensed slightly but nodded. How did you learn human language? You speak it pretty well for someone who was pretending not to hear. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. I have been listening to humans for 3 years. Grevik did business with many species. I learned by listening. I learned that if I stayed quiet and still, people forgot I was there. They said things they should not say in front of servants. Smart, Taman said. Tell me about Grevik. How did you end up with him? The smile disappeared. Hana looked down at her tea. My mother died when I was 7 years old. She was Grevik's wife. His second wife. He only married her because she had money and connections. When she died, I became a burden. He said I was not really his daughter, so he had no duty to care for me properly. But you are not really deaf, Taman said. No. I could hear perfectly well until I was 9 years old. Hana's voice became quiet. Grevik used to hit me when he was angry. One day he hit me so hard that I thought I would die. When I woke up, everything was quiet for a while. I really could not hear. Taman felt his hands clench into fists under the table. He forced himself to stay calm and listen. It took months before my hearing came back, Hana continued. But I noticed something during those months. Grevik left me alone. He stopped hitting me. I was worthless to him, so he ignored me. When my hearing returned, I did not tell him. I pretended to still be deaf because it was safer. For 7 years you pretended, Taman said softly. That must have been incredibly hard. It was easier than the alternative. Hana finally looked up at him. But now you know the truth. What will you do? Nothing, Taman said firmly. We keep this secret. As far as anyone else knows, you are still deaf. But what if someone finds out? What if Grevik comes back? As if speaking his name had summoned him, Taman's terminal beeped. A message appeared on the screen. Taman's face went pale as he read it. What is wrong? Hana asked, seeing his expression. It is from station security. Grevik has filed a complaint. He says I purchased you under false pretenses. He is demanding either a full refund or your return. Hana stood up so fast that her chair fell over. No, I cannot go back. Please, you cannot send me back to him. I am not sending you anywhere, Taman said quickly. But we have a problem. There is going to be a hearing. We will have to go before a tribunal. They will make me go back to him, Hana said, her voice rising with panic. Under Velrin property law, if a sale is fraudulent, the property must be returned. I am property. I have to go back. Not if we can prove he was abusing you, Taman said, thinking fast. If we can show the tribunal that returning you to him would put you in danger, they might rule differently. But then I would have to tell them I can hear. I would have to speak in front of other Velrins. They would tell Grevik. He would know I have been lying all these years. Hana was shaking now. You do not understand what he will do to me. Taman stood and moved closer, but careful not to touch her. Hana, listen to me. I know you are scared. I know this is terrifying. But we have 2 choices. We can run, which means spending the rest of your life hiding and looking over your shoulder, or we can fight. We can stand up to him and try to win your freedom legally. He will win, Hana said bitterly. He always wins. He has money and connections. I am nothing. I am no one. You are not nothing, Taman said firmly. You are a person who survived 7 years of hell by being clever and strong. You learned languages in secret. You stayed alive when many others would have given up. That takes incredible strength. Hana looked at him with wet eyes. Why do you care so much? You could just return me and get your money back. This is not your problem. Taman was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I had a sister once, Jiwoo. She was younger than me. When I was 24, traffickers took her. I tried to find her. I spent years searching, but I was too late. I never saw her again. I am sorry, Hana whispered. I could not save her, Taman continued, but I can help you. And maybe that does not fix what happened to Jiwoo, but it means something. It has to mean something. Hana was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, what do we need to do? First, we need a lawyer. A good one who knows interspecies law. Then we need to document everything. Your injuries, your malnutrition, any evidence of abuse. And you need to be ready to testify, to tell your story in front of the tribunal. I do not know if I can do that, Hana said. You do not have to decide right now. We have some time before the hearing. Let us take this one step at a time. Over the next few days, Taman reached out to every contact he had. He needed a lawyer who specialized in interspecies rights and was not afraid to take on a difficult case. Most lawyers he contacted turned him down immediately. The case was too complicated, too political, too risky. Then Junho came through. I know someone, he said. Minji. She is a human rights lawyer. She works mostly with refugees and victims of trafficking. If anyone will take this case, it is her. Minji arrived at the shop 2 days later. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an air of complete confidence. She listened to Hana's story without interrupting, taking notes on a tablet. When Hana finished, Minji sat back and thought for a moment. This is going to be difficult, she said honestly. Velrin property law is very clear. However, there are precedents for nullifying contracts based on fraud or abuse. The problem is proving it. Hana has scars, Taman said. She was malnourished when I got her. That has to count for something. It does, but Grevik will argue that he provided adequate care for a defective servant. He will say the scars are from clumsiness or self-harm. We need more. What about the fraud aspect? Taman asked. He sold her as deaf when she is not. Minji looked at Hana. That is actually complicated. From his perspective, he believed he was selling a deaf girl. If you never told him you could hear, he had no reason to think otherwise. The fraud was on your part, not his. So I am being punished for surviving, Hana said bitterly. I did not say that, Minji replied. I am just explaining how Grevik will frame this. But here is the thing. The law allows for what is called defensive deception. If you were lying to protect yourself from harm, that can be taken into consideration. We just have to prove that the harm was real and serious. How do we do that? Taman asked. We need evidence. Medical records, if there are any. Witnesses who saw the abuse. Documentation of his treatment of you. And most importantly, we need Hana to tell her story clearly and believably in front of the tribunal. Hana looked terrified. What if I cannot? What if I freeze up or forget what to say? Then we practice, Minji said gently. We practice until you can tell your story in your sleep. I will not let you go into that hearing unprepared. That evening, after Minji left, Taman and Hana sat in the quiet shop. Outside, the station's artificial night had fallen. The lights were dimmed to simulate darkness. Are you okay? Taman asked. Hana shook her head. I am scared. I have been hiding for so long. The idea of standing up in front of everyone and talking about what happened. I do not know if I am strong enough. You are stronger than you think, Taman said. But you do not have to be strong all the time. It is okay to be scared. What if we lose? Hana asked quietly. What if the tribunal sends me back to him? Taman looked at her seriously. Then we will figure out another plan. I promise you, Hana, I will not let him hurt you again. Even if we have to leave this station and start over somewhere else, I will keep you safe. Hana's eyes filled with tears. Why? Why would you give up everything for me? Because someone should have done the same for my sister, Taman said. And because every person deserves a chance at freedom and safety. That includes you. 2 days later, they received the official notice. The hearing would be held in 1 week. Taman, Hana, and Grevik would all appear before a tribunal consisting of 3 judges, 1 human, 1 Velrin, and 1 neutral mediator from a different species. Minji came to the shop every day to prepare Hana. They practiced her testimony over and over. At first, Hana could barely speak without breaking down, but slowly, day by day, she became stronger. Her voice became steadier. Her words became clearer. Taman watched her transform. The frightened girl who had arrived at his shop was still there, but now there was something else too. A growing sense of determination. A spark of hope. On the evening before the hearing, Hana could not sleep. She sat on the couch staring at nothing. Taman made tea and sat down across from her. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said, I want you to know that I am proud of you. You have been incredibly brave. I do not feel brave, Hana said. I feel terrified. Bravery is not the absence of fear, Taman said. It is doing the right thing even when you are afraid. And that is exactly what you are doing. Hana looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. Thank you, Taman, for everything, for buying me, for believing me, for fighting for me. Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you. You do not have to thank me, Taman said. Just promise me you will tell your truth tomorrow. Do not let fear silence you. Your story deserves to be heard, Hana nodded slowly. I promise. The smell of fried food and machine oil mixed together in the air of Nexus Station's lower market. Taman walked through the crowded pathways, his work bag hanging heavy on his shoulder. He had just finished fixing a merchant's cooling system and wanted to grab some food before heading back to his shop. The market was always busy at this hour. Humans, aliens, and every species in between pushed past each other, shouting about their goods and prices. Taman had lived on the station for 5 years now, and he knew which vendors to trust and which ones to avoid. He stopped at his usual food stall when he heard shouting nearby. A crowd had formed around something in the gray market section. Taman normally avoided that area. That was where people sold things that were not quite legal, but not quite illegal either. The station security looked the other way as long as no one complained too loudly, but something made him walk closer. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the tone of the shouting. It sounded angry and mean. Taman pushed through the crowd and saw them. A tall Velrin man stood next to a young Velrin girl. Taman recognized the species immediately. They had pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Small antenna-like structures grew from their heads. The Velrin were known throughout the galaxy as traders and merchants. The man was shouting at potential buyers. Useless thing. Completely deaf. Cannot hear a single word. I have fed her and housed her for years, and she gives nothing back. The girl stood perfectly still. Her clothes were dirty and too small for her. Her arms were thin, and Taman could see bruises on her wrists. She stared at the ground, not looking at anyone. She can work with her hands, the man continued. She is not completely worthless. Someone must need a servant who will not talk back or listen to gossip. Several aliens in the crowd laughed. A few asked questions about the price. Taman felt his stomach turn. This was wrong. He knew it was wrong, but what could he do? Then the girl looked up for just a second. Her eyes met his. There was no hope in them, no plea for help, just emptiness. And suddenly Taman saw his sister Jiwoo, his little sister who had been taken by traffickers 8 years ago. The sister he could not save. His feet moved before his brain could stop them. How much? Taman heard himself asking. The Velrin man turned to him. His face twisted into a smile that made Taman's skin crawl. Ah, a human. You have better taste than these others. 500 credits for the contract. That is too much for damaged goods, Taman said, trying to sound casual. His heart was pounding. He only had 800 credits in his account. That was supposed to last him the whole month. The man's eyes narrowed. You insult me. She may be deaf, but she has years of work left in her. 450. 300, Taman countered. And you throw in her medical records. I have no medical records. She was born this way. 400 final price. Taman looked at the girl again. She was staring at the ground once more, her body tense. He noticed she was shaking slightly. Fine. 400. Taman pulled out his credit chip. The transaction took only a few minutes. The Velrin man, who introduced himself as Grevik, transferred the contract to Taman's name. In the eyes of the law, the girl now belonged to Taman. The thought made him sick, but it was the only way to get her away from this man. Her name is Hana, Grevik said as he counted the credits. Good luck getting any use out of her. I certainly could not. He laughed and walked away without looking back at the girl. The crowd dispersed quickly, disappointed that the entertainment was over. Taman stood there with Hana, not sure what to do next. Come on, he said gently, then remembered she supposedly could not hear him. He gestured toward the main corridor. Hana followed him silently, keeping several steps behind. They walked through the station toward Taman's shop. People stared at them. A human with a Velrin servant was unusual. Humans and Velrins had a complicated history. There had been conflicts over trade routes and colonies. Most humans did not trust Velrins, and most Velrins thought humans were too emotional and unpredictable. Taman's shop was in the mid-level of the station, squeezed between a parts supplier and a noodle restaurant. The sign above the door read Taman's Repairs in 3 languages. He unlocked the door and held it open for Hana. She hesitated at the entrance, looking at him with those large, dark eyes. For a moment, Taman thought she might run. Then she stepped inside quickly, as if afraid he might change his mind. The shop was small but organized. Tools hung on the walls. Half-finished projects sat on workbenches. Taman led Hana through the shop to the back, where a narrow staircase led up to his apartment. The apartment was even smaller than the shop. One room served as bedroom, kitchen, and living space. A small bathroom connected to the side. It was not much, but it was clean and it was his. Taman pointed to the couch. You can sleep there. He mimed sleeping by putting his hands together and tilting his head. Hana nodded slightly. He went to his small kitchen area and heated up some soup. He had no idea what Velrans ate, but soup seemed safe. He poured 2 bowls and brought them to the table. Hana sat on the edge of the couch looking uncomfortable. Taman set a bowl in front of her and gestured for her to eat. She stared at the soup for a long moment, then picked up the spoon and began eating slowly. They ate in silence. Taman watched her carefully. She never looked at him directly. Her movements were careful and controlled, as if she was afraid of taking up too much space. After dinner, Taman showed her where the bathroom was and gave her some clean clothes. They were too big for her, but they were better than what she was wearing. He mimed washing and sleeping again. Hana nodded. While she was in the bathroom, Taman sat on his bed and put his head in his hands. What had he just done? He had spent most of his savings on a girl he did not know and could not communicate with. He had no plan. He had no idea what he was doing, but when he thought about walking away, about leaving her there in that market, he knew he would have done the same thing again. Later that night, Taman lay in his bed, unable to sleep. Hana was on the couch, curled up under a blanket. The apartment was dark except for a small security light on the wall. Taman's terminal beeped softly. A security alert flashed on the screen mounted on the far wall. Someone had tried to access the shop door downstairs. The alert was silent, just a flashing red light. Taman started to get up to check it, but then he froze. Hana had lifted her head. Her eyes were fixed on the screen across the room, the screen that was flashing silently in the dark. She stared at it for several seconds, then slowly lay back down. Taman's mind raced. The girl was supposed to be deaf. She should not react to a silent visual alert unless she saw it, but she was lying down. The angle was wrong. She could not have seen it from where she was, unless she had heard something. Unless she had heard the terminal beep. Taman closed his eyes and pretended to sleep, but his mind would not stop working. Something was not right about this situation. Something was not right about Hana, and he was going to find out what it was. The tribunal hall was smaller than Taman had expected. Plain white walls, efficient lighting, and 3 elevated seats where the judges would sit. No decoration, no drama, just cold institutional justice. Taman and Hana sat at one table with Minji. Grevik and his lawyer sat at another. Between them was empty space that felt like an ocean. The 3 judges entered through a side door. The human judge was a middle-aged woman named Chen with tired eyes that had seen too many difficult cases. The Velran judge was an older male named Kalith, his face unreadable. The mediator was a Threxian, a species known for their logical minds and fair judgment. His name was Vorks. This hearing will determine the validity of a contract sale and the proper disposition of the individual known as Hana, Judge Chen began. We will hear testimony from both parties and render judgment based on station law and interspecies treaty agreements. Grevik, as the complainant, you may present your case first. Grevik's lawyer stood. He was smooth and professional, his Velran accent barely noticeable when he spoke human common language. Thank you, honored judges. This case is simple. My client sold a defective servant to Taman in good faith. He disclosed that the girl was deaf and priced her accordingly. Now we have learned that she is not deaf at all. She can hear and speak perfectly. This is clear fraud and the contract must be nullified. The property must be returned to my client along with monetary compensation for his troubles. The girl in question is not property, Minji interjected. Under Velran law, she absolutely is, the lawyer countered. She was legally contracted to my client through her mother's marriage agreement. When the mother died, all contracts transferred to my client as head of household. Judge Kalith, the Velran judge, nodded slightly. This was not looking good. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, my client has documentation showing that he sought medical treatment for the girl's deafness. He provided food and shelter. He acted as any reasonable guardian would. The fact that she deceived him does not reflect on his character but on hers. Minji stood. May I present our case? Proceed, Judge Chen said. Thank you. Yes, Hana pretended to be deaf, but she did so out of desperate self-preservation. My client Taman has evidence of systematic abuse. We have medical scans showing old fractures, burn scars, and signs of malnutrition. We have witness testimony from other individuals who suffered under Grevik's care. This was not a simple contract dispute. This was a rescue from an abusive situation. Abuse is a strong accusation, Judge Vork said in his clicking, translated voice. Can you prove it? We can, Your Honor. We have multiple witnesses prepared to testify. Over the next hour, the tribunal heard testimony from Nari, who described her own abuse under Grevik's ownership. She showed her scars. She spoke clearly about the beatings, the starvation, the threats. Grevik's lawyer tried to discredit her, suggesting she was lying for attention or money. But Nari stood firm. Then came the dock workers who testified about what they had seen and heard at Grevik's residence. The crying servants, the visible injuries, the screaming they had reported to security but which was ignored. Grevik's lawyer objected repeatedly. Hearsay, circumstantial, culturally biased interpretation. These humans do not understand Velrin discipline practices. Judge Kaleth seemed to agree. In Velrin culture, physical discipline of contracted servants is not considered abuse. It is considered proper management. Even when it breaks bones, Minji challenged. Even when it leaves permanent scars? Even when the servant is a child? The girl was not a child in Velrin terms, Grevik's lawyer said. She reached maturity at age 12 in our culture. She was 14 when the abuse began, Minji shot back. A child by any reasonable standard. The arguing went back and forth. Taemin watched Hana throughout it all. She sat very still, her face pale. This was harder than any of them had anticipated. The cultural divide was too wide. What humans saw as abuse, Velrin saw as normal discipline. Finally, Judge Chen raised her hand. I think we need to hear from Hana herself. Young lady, please take the witness stand. Hana stood slowly. Her legs were shaking as she walked to the witness chair. She sat down and looked out at the room. Her eyes found Taemin's and he nodded encouragingly. Hana, Judge Chen said gently, I understand this is difficult, but we need to hear your side of the story. In your own words, please tell us what happened. For a long moment, Hana said nothing. Taemin could see her gathering her courage, fighting against years of conditioning that told her to stay silent. Then she spoke. My name is Hana. I am 16 years old. My mother married Grevik when I was 7. She loved me very much, but she was sick. She died when I was 9. Her voice was quiet but clear. Everyone in the room leaned forward to hear. After she died, Grevik changed. He said I was not his real daughter. He said I was a burden. He started hitting me when he was angry. The first time he hit me so hard that I could not hear for 3 months. The doctor said my hearing might never come back. But it did come back, Judge Vorks noted. Yes, slowly. But I noticed something. When Grevik thought I was deaf, he left me alone. He stopped hitting me as much. He ignored me. So when my hearing returned, I did not tell him. I pretended to still be deaf because it was safer. For how long did you maintain this deception? Grevik's lawyer asked sharply. 7 years. 7 years of lying to your guardian. 7 years of fraud. 7 years of surviving. Hana's voice rose for the first time. You do not understand. You were not there. I was a child. I was scared. I did what I had to do to live. Tell us about the abuse, Minji prompted gently. Hana took a shaky breath. He would hit me with whatever was nearby. His fists, a rod. One time a hot piece of metal from his workshop. He did not feed me enough. He said food was wasted on a defective servant. He would lock me in a closet for days if I made a mistake. These are serious accusations, Judge Kaleth said. Do you have proof beyond your word? I have scars, Hana said quietly. I have bones that healed wrong because no one took me to a doctor. I have memories that wake me up screaming at night. Is that not proof enough? In Velrin culture, Grevik's lawyer began. I do not care about Velrin culture. Hana shouted suddenly, standing up. I do not care about your laws or your traditions. I am a person. I am not property. And what he did to me was wrong. It was wrong and everyone knows it, but no one wants to say it because it is easier to look away. The room fell silent. Hana was shaking, tears running down her face, but she kept speaking. You want to know why I lied? You want to know why I pretended to be deaf? Because in a galaxy where I had no voice, no rights, no protection, it was the only power I had. The only way to make myself too worthless to abuse. She turned and looked directly at Grevik. But I am not worthless. I am not defective. I am not property. And I will not go back to you. I would rather die. Grevik's face remained cold, but Taemin saw something flicker in his eyes. Anger. And maybe, just maybe, a hint of fear. Judge Chen looked moved. Judge Vorks appeared thoughtful, but Judge Calith's face showed nothing. "Are you finished with your testimony?" Judge Chen asked gently. Hana nodded and sat back down. She looked exhausted, like she had just run a marathon. Minji stood. "Your Honors, I have one more piece of evidence. During the week before this hearing, my office obtained security footage from Grevik's residence. It is from 5 years ago, from a security camera that Grevik did not know was recording. We have provided copies to the tribunal." She pressed a button and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed a younger Hana, maybe 11 years old, cowering in a corner. Grevik entered the frame. What happened next made several people in the room gasp. The footage was silent, but the violence was clear. Grevik hit Hana repeatedly. When she tried to protect herself, he grabbed her arm and twisted it. The angle was wrong. Clearly wrong. Hana's mouth opened in a scream no one could hear in the silent footage. "That is the arm that healed improperly," Minji said quietly. "Medical scans confirmed a fracture at age 11 that was never properly treated. The date of this footage matches exactly. Grevik's lawyer was on his feet. That footage could be falsified." "There is no way to prove. We had it authenticated by 3 independent experts," Minji interrupted. "It is real, and it shows exactly what kind of guardian Grevik was." Judge Calith leaned forward. "Grevik, do you have a response to this evidence?" Grevik spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, almost bored. "The girl was disobedient. I was correcting her behavior, as is my right under Velrin law. By breaking her arm?" Judge Chen asked incredulously. "She was careless. She fell after I disciplined her." "That is a lie," Hana shouted. "You broke it. You twisted it until I felt it snap." "Order," Judge Vorks called. "We will have order in this chamber." The judges conferred quietly among themselves for several minutes. The room waited in tense silence. Finally, Judge Chen spoke. "This tribunal has reached a decision. The evidence of abuse is compelling and cannot be ignored. However, the legal situation is complex. Under Velrin law, the contract sale was valid. Under human ethical standards, returning Hana to Grevik would constitute knowing endangerment." Taemin held his breath. "Therefore," Judge Chen continued, "we rule that the contract sale stands. Hana will not be returned to Grevik. I will tell them everything." Neither of them knew that tomorrow would change both of their lives forever. The week before the hearing became a blur of preparation and growing tension. Minji transformed Taemin's small apartment into a makeshift legal office, with documents and evidence scattered across every surface. "We need to be absolutely thorough," Minji explained as she organized photographs of Hana's scars and bruises. "The Velrin judge on the tribunal will be looking for any excuse to rule in Grevik's favor. Cultural bias runs deep." Hana sat on the couch looking at the photos with a distant expression. Taemin had taken them the day after she revealed the truth, documenting every mark on her body. There were more than he had initially thought. Old scars on her back, bruises at various stages of healing, a badly healed bone in her left wrist. "We also need witnesses," Minji continued. "Anyone who might have seen the abuse or can testify to Grevik's character." "I do not know anyone who would speak against him," Hana said quietly. "He is well connected in the Velrin community. People fear him." "What about other servants he has owned?" Taemin asked. "If there is a pattern of abuse that strengthens our case," Minji nodded. "Good thinking. I will start searching station records for any previous sales or contracts. If we can find others he has mistreated, we might be able to establish a pattern." But building the case proved harder than they expected. Grevik had been careful over the years. He knew how to stay just within the bounds of the law while inflicting maximum cruelty. Most of his previous servants had disappeared into the galaxy, untraceable. Making matters worse, Grevik had not been idle. Word began spreading through the station. Taemin heard the whispers in the market. Some said he had stolen Velrin property. Others claimed he was using Hana for immoral purposes. A few suggested he was a Velrin sympathizer who could not be trusted. One afternoon, Taemin returned to his shop to find the word "thief" spray-painted across his front door. The next day, someone threw a rock through his window while he was working. The day after that, 3 of his regular customers canceled their orders. Junho stopped by that evening, his face serious. "People are talking, Taemin, and not in a good way. Grevik has been spreading rumors. He is telling everyone you tricked him and stole his property. I did not steal anything, Taman said angrily. I bought her legally. I know that. You know that. But Grevik is rich and connected. He has influence. He is turning people against you. Taman looked around his shop. His business was his life. He had spent years building it up from nothing. Now it was falling apart because he had tried to do the right thing. Do you regret it? Junho asked quietly. Buying her? Taman did not hesitate. No, I would do it again. Junho grinned and clapped him on the shoulder. That is what I thought you would say. So let me help. I have been asking around too, and I found something. He pulled out a data chip. Remember how we needed witnesses? Well, I found one. A Velrin woman named Nari. She worked for Grevik 5 years ago. She agreed to talk to Minji. Hope flickered in Taman's chest. Where is she now? She runs a small shop on the upper levels. She is scared, but she is willing to testify. She said she cannot stay silent anymore. The next day, Minji interviewed Nari in Taman's apartment. Hana sat quietly listening to the other Velrin woman's story. Grevik bought my contract when I was 14, Nari said. He told my family I would learn a trade and earn good money. But when I arrived, everything changed. He worked me 18 hours a day. He barely fed me. And when I made mistakes? She pulled back her sleeve, revealing burn scars. He punished me. Did you report this to authorities? Minji asked. I tried. But Grevik had friends in station security. They said it was a private Velrin matter. They told me to be grateful I had work at all. How did you get away from him? Taman asked. I did not. He sold me to another merchant when I turned 18. The new owner was kinder. He released me from my contract after 3 years. But I never forgot what Grevik did to me. Minji took detailed notes. Would you be willing to testify at the hearing? To tell the tribunal what happened to you? Nari hesitated. Fear showed clearly on her face. If I testify, Grevik will know where I am. He might come after me. We can request protection for you, Minji said. As a witness in a legal proceeding, you have certain rights. Rights mean nothing when you are dealing with someone like Grevik, Nari said bitterly. But then she looked at Hana. How old are you? 16, Hana said softly. Nari closed her eyes. I was 14. You were even younger when it started, were you not? Hana nodded. Then I will testify, Nari said with sudden determination. Someone has to stop him. Someone has to speak up for all the children he has hurt. Over the next few days, Minji built their case. She found 2 other former servants who agreed to provide written statements, though they were too afraid to testify in person. She dug up records showing that Grevik had owned and sold 15 servants in the past 20 years. An unusually high number suggesting he was running through them quickly, but Grevik was preparing too. 3 days before the hearing, he filed additional documents claiming that Taman had deliberately deceived him. He included testimony from other Velrin merchants who swore that Hana had appeared completely deaf when they examined her in the market. This is bad, Minji admitted. If the tribunal believes Grevik thought he was selling a deaf girl honestly, it becomes your word against his. And unfortunately, a human's word does not always carry as much weight as a Velrin's in these proceedings. So what do? Taman asked. We focus on the abuse. Even if the sale was technically legal, returning Hana to an abusive situation is not. We need to make the judges understand that sending her back to Grevik would be sentencing her to more suffering. That night, Taman could not sleep. He went down to his shop and started working on a broken engine, needing to keep his hands busy. He heard footsteps on the stairs and turned to see Hana. You should be sleeping, he said gently. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. I cannot sleep, Hana said. She walked over to his workbench and picked up a tool, examining it. Taman, what happens if we lose? We are not going to lose, but what if we do? What if the tribunal orders me to go back to Grevik? Taman put down the wrench he was holding and looked at her seriously. If that happens, we will figure something out. Maybe we leave the station. Maybe we go somewhere the ruling cannot reach us. You would become a fugitive for me? Hana asked in disbelief. If that is what it takes to keep you safe, yes. Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I have never had anyone willing to sacrifice for me before. My mother loved me, but she was too weak to stand up to Grevik. After she died, I thought no one in the universe cared whether I lived or died. I care, Taman said simply. And so does Junho, and Minji, and even Nari, who you just met. You are not alone anymore, Hana. Tears ran down her face. I am so scared of tomorrow. I am scared of standing up there and telling everyone what he did to me. I am scared they will not believe me. I am scared they will think I deserved it. You did not deserve any of it, Taman said firmly. What happened to you was not your fault, and anyone who cannot see that is blind. The morning of the hearing arrived too quickly. Taman put on his best clothes, which were not very impressive compared to what others would wear. Hana wore a simple dress that Minji had brought for her. It was clean and modest, designed to make her look young and vulnerable. Minji arrived early to go over final details. Remember, she told Hana, speak clearly and directly. Look at the judges when you talk. Do not let Grevik intimidate you. You are not his property anymore. You are a person telling your truth. As they prepared to leave for the tribunal hall, Junho arrived with unexpected news. I found more witnesses, he said, slightly out of breath. 2 dock workers who used to deliver supplies to Grevik's residence. They are willing to testify about what they saw and heard. What did they see? Minji asked sharply. Servants with injuries, crying. One of them said he once heard screaming from inside the residence. He reported it, but nothing was done. This was the break they needed. Minji quickly added the witnesses to their list and sent the updated documents to the tribunal. As they walked through the station toward the tribunal hall, Taman noticed how people stared at them. Some looks were sympathetic. Others were hostile. The case had divided the station community. Outside the tribunal hall, they found a small crowd gathered. Some held signs supporting Hana. Others held signs supporting Grevik and Velrin rights. Station security kept the 2 groups separated, and there, standing near the entrance with his lawyer, was Grevik. He looked exactly as Taman remembered. Tall, imposing, with cold eyes that showed no emotion. When he saw Hana, his expression did not change, but something flickered in those eyes. Something that made Taman instinctively step closer to Hana. Grevik said something to his lawyer, then walked directly toward them. Security moved to intercept, but he stopped just outside their reach. Still pretending to be deaf, little Hana? Grevik said in the Velrin language. He spoke loudly, clearly expecting no response. Hana tensed but said nothing. Grevik smiled. I will have you back by nightfall, and then you will learn what happens to servants who betray their masters. She is not your servant anymore, Taman said coldly, and she never will be again. The morning sun lamps flickered on throughout Nexus Station, simulating a dawn that did not exist in space. Taman woke up early as he always did. For a moment he forgot about the previous night. Then he heard movement in his living area. Hana was already awake, sitting on the couch with perfect posture. She looked at him when he emerged from his sleeping area, then quickly looked away. Taman made breakfast. Simple rice and eggs. He had no idea if Velrins could eat human food, but Hana had eaten the soup last night without problems. He set a plate in front of her and pointed to it. She ate slowly, methodically. Every movement seemed calculated. Taman watched her while pretending not to. Something about her behavior bothered him, but he could not figure out what. After breakfast, Taman opened his shop. He had 3 repair jobs scheduled for the day: a broken environmental control unit, a malfunctioning communication panel, and a damaged power regulator. Normal work. Hana followed him downstairs. Taman pointed to a stool in the corner and gestured for her to sit. He did not expect her to work. He had not bought her to work. He just did not want to leave her alone upstairs. The first customer arrived an hour later, Mrs. Chen, an elderly human woman who ran a clothing shop 2 levels up. She brought her environmental control unit in a hover cart. "Morning, Taman," she said cheerfully. Then she noticed Hana. "Oh, who is this?" "This is Hana," Taman said. "She is staying with me for a while." Mrs. Chen's expression changed. She recognized a Velrin when she saw one. "I see. Well, I hope you know what you are doing, young man. Those people cannot be trusted." Taman did not argue. He just nodded and took the environmental unit to his workbench. Mrs. Chen left, glancing back at Hana with suspicion. As Taman worked, he explained what he was doing out of habit. He always talked to himself while he worked. It helped him think. He did not expect Hana to understand or hear him. "The problem is usually in the temperature sensor," he said, opening the unit. "They get dirty and stop reading correctly. Then the whole system thinks it is too hot or too cold." He glanced at Hana. She was watching him intently. When he looked up, she quickly looked away. Taman made a loud noise, dropping a tool on the metal workbench. The clang echoed through the shop. Hana did not flinch, did not turn her head, did not react at all. But when he bent down to pick up the tool, he saw her hands. They were gripping the edge of the stool tightly. Her knuckles had turned a darker shade of blue. Interesting. Over the next few hours, Taman noticed more things. When he moved behind, Hershey always seemed to know he was there even though he made no sound. When his friend Junho burst through the door with a loud greeting, Hana showed no reaction. But when Junho walked to the other side of the shop, her eyes tracked him the whole way. Junho was a cargo hauler, built like a mountain with a personality to match. He grinned when he saw Hana. "Who is this little one?" "Hana," Taman said. "She is staying with me." Junho raised an eyebrow. "A Velrin? You know people are going to talk, right?" "Let them talk." Junho shrugged. "Your life, brother. Hey, I need you to look at my cargo scanner. It keeps giving false readings. Bring it by tomorrow, I am busy today." After Junho left, Taman continued his work. He showed Hana how to hand him tools by pointing to each one and naming it. Screwdriver, wrench, pliers. She caught on quickly. Too quickly for someone who supposedly could not hear. By the end of the day, Taman had formed a theory. He did not want to believe it, but the evidence was clear. Hana could hear. She was pretending to be deaf. But why? That night, after they ate dinner in silence, Taman pulled up information about Velrin culture on his terminal. What he read made his blood run cold. In Velrin society, deaf individuals were considered defective. They were cast out of families, denied education, and often sold as servants. The Velrin language relied heavily on sonic frequencies that humans could not hear. A deaf Velrin could not participate in their own culture. But there was more. Taman found reports of abuse, families who beat their deaf children, merchants who worked them to death. The galaxy largely ignored it because it was considered an internal Velrin matter. Taman looked at Hana, who was sitting on the couch staring at nothing. How long had she been pretending? And what had been done to her to make her think this was the only way to survive? He decided to test his theory more carefully. Over the next week, Taman continued to watch Hana. He made sudden loud noises when she was not looking. She never reacted. But he also noticed she always knew when someone was approaching the shop, even when they were silent. She always knew when he was behind her. She understood his gestures too quickly, as if she was also hearing his words. Hana began helping in the shop. She learned fast, faster than any apprentice Taman had ever trained. She could identify parts after seeing them once. She understood complex repairs after a single demonstration. Her hands were skilled and precise. Customers reacted differently to her. Some, like Mrs. Chen, were suspicious and rude. Others ignored her completely. A few were kind, like old Mr. Kim who ran the noodle restaurant next door. "That girl looks too thin," Mr. Kim said one day, leaving a container of noodles. "Make sure she eats." Taman did make sure she ate. Slowly, over the week, Hana began to look healthier. Her skin lost some of its dull quality. The dark circles under her eyes faded. She even smiled once when Taman fixed an old music box and gave it to her. But she still did not speak. She still pretended to be deaf. Then came the incident that changed everything. It was late at night. Taman was working on a rush job in the shop while Hana slept upstairs. He was being as quiet as possible, not wanting to wake her. He was carrying a heavy power regulator across the shop when his foot caught on a power cable. He stumbled and dropped the regulator. It hit the floor with a tremendous crash, loud enough to wake half the station level. Taman cursed and looked down at the damaged unit. Then he heard footsteps on the stairs. Fast footsteps. Hana appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide and alert. She looked at him, then at the broken regulator on the floor. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Hana's expression changed. Fear flooded her face. She realized what she had done. She had reacted to a sound. "It is okay," Taemin said softly. "Hana, it is okay." She backed toward the stairs, shaking her head. Her hands came up in a defensive gesture. "I am not angry," Taemin continued, taking a step toward her. "I am not going to hurt you. I just want to talk." Hana's back hit the wall. She looked trapped, terrified. Her breathing came fast and shallow. "You can hear me, cannot you?" Taemin asked gently. "Hana, I know you can hear me. I have known for days." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, Hana nodded. It was tiny, barely visible, but it was a nod. "Can you speak?" Taemin asked. Another pause. Then Hana opened her mouth. "Yes." The word was quiet, accented, but clear. "I can speak. I can hear." Taemin felt his heart breaking and mending at the same time. "Why did you pretend? Why did you let him sell you as deaf?" Tears began running down Hana's face. Because deaf is safe. Deaf is worthless. When I am worthless, he does not hurt me as much. When I am worthless, he does not." She stopped, unable to continue. Taemin understood. He understood with a clarity that made him want to find Grevik and throw him off the station. But first he needed to help Hana. "You are safe now," he said. "He cannot hurt you here. I will not let him." "You will send me back," Hana whispered. "When they find out I lied, they will send me back to him. It is the law." "What law?" "Velrun law. If a sale is made under false pretenses, the property is returned." Property. The word made Taemin sick, but he pushed his anger down. Right now, Hana needed calm, not rage. "Then we will not tell anyone," Taemin said. "As far as the station knows, you are deaf. We will keep it that way until we figure out what to do." Hana looked at him with disbelief. "Why? Why would you help me? You do not know me. I am not even your species." "Because it is the right thing to do," Taemin said simply. "And because no one should have to pretend to be less than they are just to survive." Hana slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. She put her face in her hands and sobbed. They were not quiet, polite tears. They were loud, painful, years of held-back emotion pouring out. Taemin sat down on the floor a few feet away from her. He did not try to touch her or comfort her physically. He just sat there, a silent presence, letting her know she was not alone. When Hana finally stopped crying, she looked up at him. "What do we do now?" "Now," Taemin said, "we figure out how to keep you safe. And maybe if we are lucky, we figure out how to set you free." But Taemin had no idea how complicated that was going to be.